Hello student, we have been learning the sixth lesson of the history standard 8 entitled as beginning of freedom movement, that is international movement. In the first part of the video you have seen the centralization of administration during British rule, then economic exploitation of the Britishers, study of ancient Indian history, contribution of the newspapers and western educations, establishment of International Congress, aims and objective of the International Congress, moderate phase and extremist phase. Okay, and the its followers and the contribution of it. Now, next part we are going to study the partition of Bengal. So let us continue. The British decided to use the policy of divide and rule to create a rift between Hindu and Muslim community. So the Britishers wanted to break the unity of Hindu and Muslim. So they wanted to divide us and rule over us. So that is the divide and rule policy. The then Viceroy Lord Curzon contributed to it. Let us learn through these images. Now see what it states. Here is the picture of Lord Curzon, and he partitioned, that is divided, Bengal in 1905 into Hindu and Muslim, the Bengal region, Bengal province of India, that he partitioned it between Hindu and Muslim community as a divide and rule policy. 42 years later, India divided into Pakistan, India and Bangladesh. So that is the outcome of it, and still it is happening. Communal right still happens today. So that is the stark reality, but we need to accept it. Bengal was the very large province. To carry out its work of this province was difficult from the administrative point of view. So what was the reason given? Let us try to understand. As Bengal is the larger province, and administration point of view, it is really difficult to carry out the business. So by putting up this reason, in 1905 he declared the partition of Bengal province. With the partition, arrangement was made such that majority Muslim will remain in East Bengal and West Bengal for majority of Hindus. Now here you can see the partition. Eastern Bengal, it is for the Muslim people, it is given in green color, and this red color, that is Bengal part, another Bengal part to the left side, it is for the Hindus. So it is deliberately made from this point of view. So the Muslim will remain in the East Bengal and the West Bengal for the majority of Muslim Hindus. The hidden strategy of the British was, if the Hindu Muslim were divided due to partition, then the freedom movement will be weakened. So the India's strong freedom movement, as it was taking a very good shape, it was in a good swing, so they wanted to break it. So in order to break it, they divide Indians into on the basis of religions, that is Hindu and Muslim, and partition of Bengal, that one of the part of it. Next point, anti-partition movement, the movement which raised its voice against the partition. There was a public awakening against partition, not only in Bengal but all over India. So not only in Bengal but all over India, the people protested against it. 16 October, the day of partition, was observed as a national mourning day. So which day? 16 October. So it is observed as a national mourning day because the partition was done on this day. All over India, there was a protest meeting to condemn the government's decision. Vande Mataram came to be sung everywhere. As a symbol of unity, Raksha Bandhan programs were held. The students in a large number boycotted government schools and college and participated in the movement. So those government schools that was of Britishers, so they boycotted. They did not go, they did not attend it, and they participated in the movement. The leadership of this movement was in the hands of Surendranath Banerjee, Anand Mohan Bose, Rabindranath Tagore, and such other leaders. The leader Surendranath Banerjee, poet Rabindranath Tagore, Ananda Mohan Bose. The extent of Indian National Congress increased due to the Antipartisan Movement. It became a national movement. Owing to the severity of dissatisfaction, the British annulled the partition of Bengal. So, growing dissatisfaction among the Indians and the demonstration of the Indians against the partition, finally British decided to cancel this partition of Bengal. Next point, the 4-point program of Indian National Congress. Gopal Krishna Gokhale. So this is the pick of Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Was the president of Indian National Congress session of 1905. So when the partition of Bengal took place, the president of the Indian National Congress session was Gopal Krishna Gokhale. He supported the anti-partition movement. Dadabhai Nauroji was the president of 1906 session of the Indian National Congress. So 1905 Gopal Krishna Gokhale and 1906 Dadabhai Nauroji, they both were the presidents for the different years. For first time he pronounced the word Swaraj from the stage. Dadabhai Nauroji first time pronounced the word Swaraj. In his presidential speech, he gave the message that remain united, try sincerely and fulfill the aim of Swaraj, that is rule of self, that is Swaraj. So that today we will be able to save lakhs of people suffering from poverty, hunger, diseases, and India will get respectable position among developed countries. So very excellent message that he has to support Swaraj in order to take over the suffering of the people from the poverty, hunger, diseases, and India will get the respectable position among the developed countries. So that was his message. In the same session, Swaraj, Swadeshi, national education, and boycott. So this 4-point program was unanimously accepted by the Indian National Congress. Keep in mind this 4-point program, that is Swaraj, Swadeshi, national education and boycott. So this 4-point program was unanimously accepted by the Indian National Congress. Due to the Swadeshi movement, we will be self-sufficient. To follow the path of Swadeshi, we need to bring together capital, resources, manpower and such other forces, and from this benefit of the country could be achieved. To follow this path of Swadeshi, what we need to bring together, that is capital, that is money, resources, manpower and such other forces for the benefit of the country. So that was the message given. Now it was decided that boycotting of foreign goods is the first step and boycott of foreign rule will be the next step. So boycotting the foreign good, that was the signature, that was the symbol that foreign rule is also going to be boycott. Due to the boycott, that is ban. Due to the boycott, we will be able to attack the roots of British imperialism, was the opinion of some of the leaders. Now the next point, the differences between moderates and the extremists. Differences, that is various point of views between them, or the points where they argue, that is the differences where they are not agreed. The differences between the ideologies of Indian National Congress rose to great extent in the Surat session in 1907. So that is what we are talking about, the Congress session of 1907 that was held at Surat, where this partition between moderates and extremists is done. The moderates were trying to keep aside the resolution of Swadeshi and boycott. The moderate people, so these moderate people, Dadabhai Nauroji and Banerjee, they were of the opinion that Indian National Congress should not follow this one, that is a resolution of Swadeshi, using of homemade things, Swadeshi and boycott. So they were saying that not to do this, and the extremists trying trying that this opposition should not be successful, and the extremists was opposite of it. They wanted to retain this. So Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Surendranath Banerjee, Firoz Shah Mehta, such moderate leaders blamed that the extremist leaders are trying to capture the Indian National Congress. So claim that means they wanted to dominate the Indian National Congress, therefore they are just implying their opinions on them, imposing it. Lala Lajpat Rai tries to act as a mediator. As per the Tilak's opinion, Indian National Congress was a national platform, hence it should not be divided. During this session, the tension increased, and since no compromise was made, so possibly final, there was a split in the Indian National Congress. So Indian National Congress that was made with the people of extremists and the moderates. So there were two groups in it, and as the two groups not agreed on the some point, so there was a divide between these two groups. That two groups divided, that means the Indian National Movement or the Indian National Congress divided. The movement also divided. Next point, suppression of the British or the suppression policy of the Britishers. After anti-partition movement, the government was disturbed looking at the influential public protest. As the people are coming together and they are getting success, by looking at this, Britishers become annoyed. To control this movement, the government used the policy of suppression. Holding of public meetings was legally banned. That means publicly meetings cannot be done. Strict punishment were given to those who broke the laws. School children were also beaten up. Many restrictions were imposed on the newspapers. Many printing press were confiscated on the grounds of blame of criticizing the government. So writers and the editors were imprisoned. Strict actions were taken against the extremist leaders. This led to a severe reaction in the Bengal. So in what ways Britishers suppressed Indians? Public meeting cannot be done openly. Strict punishments were given to those who are breaking the laws. School children were beaten up. There were restrictions on the newspaper and the editors. Even they were imprisoned. Strict actions were taken against the extremist leaders in this way. So the revolutionaries adopted the means of firing, bombs, blast, etc. Who are the revolutionaries? From the extremists, the revolutionaries, they adopted the means of firing bombs and blasts against the Britishers. So these bombs attacks were advocated through Kesari newspapers by Lokmanya Tilak. So as Lokmanya Tilak was supporting this movement through the newspapers, newspapers from Kesari, so the charge of sedition was put on the Lokmanya Tilak, for which he was sent to the Mandale jail at Myanmar for 6 years imprisonment. So he was sent to the Myanmar jail, that is called as a Mandale prison. So Bipin Chandra Pal was sentenced to jail and Lala Lajpat Rai was deported from Punjab. So all three were separated and separate places were taken just to finish this anti-protection or finish this anti-partition movement against the Britishers. Establishment of Muslim League. The British became very disturbed looking at the overwhelming response to the Indian National Congress in the anti-partition movement. So British becomes annoyed as the anti-partition movement was getting famous. So the British once again followed the policy of divide and rule. They started using the propaganda that for safeguarding the interest of Muslims, they should have a separate political organization. So under this excuse, there is what? For safeguarding the interest of Muslims, they should have a separate political organization just for the Muslims, sake of Muslims. Due to this motivation of the British government, a committee of upper class Muslim under the leadership of Aga Khan met Governor General Lord Minto. Due to the motivation from Lord Minto and other British officers, the Muslim League was established in 1906. So this is again one of the divides between the Hindu and Muslim. So deliberately Muslim organization was established so that it should become strong and they should oppose the Hindu people's organization and they can fight between them. So that was the reason behind establishing Muslim League in 1906 by the Britishers. So this is the symbol of All India Muslim League. Morley Mento Act. There was dissatisfaction among the Indians regarding the work of British government. The Indians felt that reasons of poverty in India was the economic policy of the British, and that was quite right. Economic suppression policy, exploitation policy which they adopted in India, so that make Indians very much poor. Oppressive policy of Lord Curzon, exclusion of educated Indians in government services, unjust behavior towards Indians in Africa, all this added to the dissatisfaction of the Indian people. As a temporary remedy on the discontent among Indians, the Morley Mento Reform Act 1909 was passed. According to this act, it increased the number of Indian members in Legislative Assembly and provision of inclusion of some elected Indians representatives in Legislative Assembly was made. So this is really most important act. I repeat again, according to this act, it increased the number of Indians members in the Legislative Assembly and provisions of inclusion of some elected Indian representatives in Legislative Assembly was made. In the same act, the separate electorates were provided to the Indian Muslims. Along with the other Indians, Indian Muslims also the separate electorate provided. Now, due to this conspiracy of the British, the seeds of division in India were sown. There were two persons called Morley and Mento. So this act named after them, Morley Mento Act. Lucknow Pact or Lucknow Contract. In the Lucknow session of Indian National Congress in 1906, the session which was held at Lucknow, UP. So this act is given by that particular name. Under the leadership of Lokmanya Tilak, an attempt was made to resolve the dispute in the Indian National Congress. In the same year, there was an agreement between Indian National Congress and Muslim League. So they both made one agreement. It is known as the Lucknow Pact. According to this pact, the Indian National Congress agreed to separate electorate to Muslims and Muslim League agreed to support the Indian National Congress in its work for getting political rights to India. So, Indian National Congress promised them that they would give the separate electorate for the Muslims and in return Muslim will support them. Home Rule Movement, that is Swaraj. In 1914, when Lokmanya Tilak was released from the Mandalay jail, as we learned previously that he was imprisoned in Myanmar at Mandalay prison for 6 years, so he was released in 1914. The First World War had begun in Europe, so the direct consequences of this war had to be borne by India as well. The rates of the basic necessary commodities increased. So, as a part of war, so India is supposed to participate from the Britishers' side, even though India was not ready to participate in the war, but Britishers wanted India to participate and to fight for the Britishers in the First World War. Okay, so as they were in the need of money, so they increased the cost of the things, basic things. So many restrictions were put up on the Indians by the British government. So this led to the increased dissatisfaction in the minds of Indians. So in these circumstances, Dr. Annie Besant, you can see the pic of Annie Besant, and Lokmanya Tilak, they started the Home Rule movement. Home rule, that means self-government. Such movement also began in Ireland against colonialism. On similar lines, Home Rule movement demanded a right of self-government in India. So as it was started in Ireland under the rule of or under the leadership of Annie Besant in Ireland, so in the same way Tilak wanted to start it in India under his leadership. So Annie Besant and Lokmanya Tilak made extensive tour in different parts of the country, and demand for self-government reached the common people. So Tilak, that is Lokmanya Tilak, he firmly started that Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. It is a very much famous slogan you might be knowing. So this is the famous slogan given by Lokmanya Tilak, that is Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. The First World War and India. So what is the role of India in the First World War? Let us see. The war atmosphere in Europe, growing dissatisfaction in the minds of Indians, popularity of Home Rule movement. In such condition, it was necessary for the British to get cooperation from the Indians. See, as Britishers were in the problems from all the sides. What were the problems? The war atmosphere were created in the Europe. So they need to fight, even growing dissatisfaction in the minds of Indians, and popularity of Home Rule movement that was increased in India. So favorable atmosphere from the side of India. So in this way, the British wanted to get cooperation from the Indians. The British government decided to provide some political rights to the Indians. So in 1970, the Montagu, Secretary of State for India, declared that step by step Indians will be given the right to self-government and responsible political system. So Lokmanya Tilak also declared that if the government is going to show sympathy and considerable attitude towards the demands of the Indians, only then Indian public is ready to cooperate the British. So this policy of Lokmanya Tilak is known as responsive cooperation. That if you respond for the cooperation, we will also respond for the cooperation. That is responsive cooperation from the both sides. Montagu-Chelmsford Reform Act. In 1919, the British Parliament passed another act to bring constitutional reforms in India. So this act is known as Montagu-Chelmsford Reform Act. According to this act, less important departments were transferred to the Indian ministers, whereas the important departments like finance, home affairs, the revenue were under the control of the governor. So, see, the very important departments are kept in the hands of Britishers, and the lower important departments are given to the Indians under this act. The 1919 Act did not give much exposure to the demand for the responsible government of Indians. Everybody was disappointed due to this. So everyone got disappointed by the policy of this act. So Lokmanya Tilak criticized this act in the following words: "This is neither Swaraj nor its foundation." In this way, Lokmanya Tilak criticized this act. So this is the neither Swaraj nor its foundation. The Indians understood that if they have to subdue the British government, then the agitation needs to be more rigorous. India got prepared for the new movement. So Indians also understood that Britishers are really again exploited, and we have to be united to fight against the Britishers and drive them away from the country. And this gave the good encouragement to the Indian national freedom movement. So here our lesson ends. Thanks. If you really like, please share and subscribe it.